Hey everybody, about a month ago I started my exciting new journey into medium format film photography. I bought this awesome Mamiya C220 and I've been loving it. I really like the square format. I like the methodical process of taking photos where you have to set everything, use a magnifier to look at the ground glass. Oh, it's really nice. One thing that just stands out though is a bit of a pain is not having a meter. We are so used to having a meter in our cameras. Like this Canon A1, it's got a built-in meter. You look in there, you'll see these little red numbers telling you what to set the dials to, or you can just let the camera do it all for you. But not so on the older cameras. Older cameras didn't even have an ISO setting on them because all you do is set your shutter speed and your aperture to the numbers that your light meter tells you to use. You're supposed to have a real light meter in your hand, or one of the old school ones, and that's how you use it. So it kind of leaves you with, I guess, 4 different approaches. One of them is to use to cart a real light meter around with you. Another one will be to use your other camera. So if I've got my Canon, I can use the meter reading from this. Another approach is to go all Sunny 16 and its variants and be bold. And finally, you can just get an app on your phone and use that. And that works, but it just kind of loses a bit of the feel for what we're trying to get. And I was looking for something to help me out with this with my new camera. And I didn't even realize that they make little tiny light meters that mount right on the shoe. And this is the one I got. This little guy. Look at how tiny that is. They have many styles of these available that have different kinds of displays. And there's this kind doesn't have any digital display, and that's really what I was looking for. Again, I didn't want to change the vibe of the camera. I wanted it to fit in. There's actually 3 of these out there as far as I know. The OG is the Voigtlander VC. Next along is the TT Artisan light meter, and then there's the Doomo Meter D, which is this one. The decision for me was quite simple. The Voigtlander costs $225, and that's enough to buy another film camera, so that was a no-go. The TT Artisan is between $70 and $80. If you want to try one, maybe you go for that one. It's bulkier than the other 2, thicker, heavier, and I've read reviews that the construction is not as solid. This one is right in the sweet spot between the 2, and it costs $115 right now. So that's what I bought. The adjustments are easy to make. The shoe here, you can move it around so that if you want this thing to be centered or not centered. And it has little springs that will keep it in place. It's very simple. Very simple device that does not look anachronistic on your older camera. How do you use it? Well, you use your thumbnail to catch this little bump on the scale, this disc that's on the knob, on the left knob, and you rotate that so that the ISO that you want is showing through the little window. Once you've done that, you point it at your subject and you press the button, little button on the back, and you take a reading. And then you twiddle the dials to your heart's content. You could, we'll just choose a shutter speed. I'll just take 125, and then I will dial in the aperture, and you see these change, and that's telling me that I should be using an aperture around f8, 125. And just so you can see, I'll show you, I don't have an old-fashioned rangefinder. I'll have to use my X100 here as a stand-in, but you can see this device does not look out of place on a rangefinder camera. And if we put it on the side of the Mamiya, that's a little bit of a process here. We put it on the side of the Mamiya. Look at that. That doesn't look bad either. It's in a really good position when you're when you've got the camera around your neck and you're setting everything, you just press the button on the back, take an exposure, adjust the dials until the display says your exposure is right, read the exposure off the dials, and don't forget to set the actual settings on your lens, set your aperture and your shutter speed, and it will do the job. A question you might ask is, how good are these? How accurate are these? Do they really work? And I spent quite a bit of time messing around with my light meter and using this thing to compare the settings and see what it looked like. And this is what I found out. So if I take a meter reading off of me using a real light meter, this says 2.8, 125. And if I take this thing and hold it at arm's length and take a reading and dial it in, it says 2.8, 125. But, and this is a big but, I cheated. In all my experimentation, this was underexposing by about a stop. Is that a big deal? No, because all I had to do was cheat the ISO in the right direction. So when I have ISO 400 film in the camera, all I have to do is set this to say ISO 200, and then the values this produces are spot on. And it repeats. So I went outside, I went in dark areas, and I used this, and it just turns out that this one, when I use it, produces values that underexpose by about one stop. And in order for me to account for that, I just adjust the ISO so that instead of 400, it's a stop below, it's 200. And that will give me more exposure. Works just fine. And I took a whole roll of 120 film last week using this, and the pictures came out pretty good. I think that might have something to do with the fact that the camera overexposes by half a stop. This thing has been underexposing by a stop, and so between the two of them, everything worked out. It was only just the other day that I finally realized this thing has been underexposing by a stop. In any case, exposure compensation, there's no setting on this for that. You don't have like a little knob or something, but all you do is just adjust your ISO, set it to something if you want to compensate for the fact that the camera overexposes by half a stop, which mine does, because the shutter is kind of slow on it. Then cheat this up a little bit. It says 400, we'll cheat it up to halfway between 400 and 800, and it'll work just fine. So at the end of the day, I really like this. It does the job very well. And I don't think you can go wrong with one of these. Of course, I wouldn't use this for mission critical photography. If you've got something that important, get a real light meter out. But otherwise, it's better than using your phone. It's right there and it looks good. That's all I got for today. Thank you for watching.